Good evening. My name is Arturo Dominguez. I'm the Spanish pastor here in West Hills Church of the Nazarene. And one of the things that I would like to recommend you is that if you know some Spanish speaking people that don't have a church or they're looking for something in order to learn the Word of God, send them over. We're here ready for them. Okay, I would like to talk for for a short time about an occasion when King David was struggling. I would say out in the wilderness, he was struggling because King Saul wanted to kill him, and so he'd been in the run for quite some time. But Psalm 42 it got my attention because David is say, as the deer beg for fresh waters, he say, my soul is begging to you, O God, the same way. And I guess when we go through some years and we don't have enough water, even the animals, the deers out in the mountains start coming down. They're looking for either for fresh water or for some fresh food or something. But it got my attention because nowadays we, the Christians or the modern Christians, as I call sometimes, we don't really beg to God for something like this. We are very busy on our occupations, even our ministry, our work, everything else. But we don't really beg to God the same way as King David was begging to him. Because King David say, my soul, not only my body, but my soul is begging to you. And one of the things that we don't usually have is that we really are not thirsty for the Word of God. We don't look to be reading the Word of God the way that we should do. We are, like I say, busy on something else, and sometimes we even forget to read the Word on a week, sometimes 2 weeks. But what would happen if we would be as thirsty as King David was comparing the deer, the thirst of the deer looking for water? What about if we would be that thirst, or if we would feel that thirst for God, to be in the presence of God, or to read the Word of God? You know, many people think that to be in the presence of God, you need to be in the house of God. And yes, it is okay. That's why this temple being built, because we feel that the presence of God is here. But what about if we would like to look or to seek to feel the presence of God in our lives, in our individual lives, in our own bedrooms, on our maybe backyard, on our daily living? What about if we wish to get that closer to God? Then we say, I'm not going to eat. I want to feel the presence of God. You know, many times we don't really worry about feeling the presence of God. But to feel the presence of God is something so beautiful that nobody else can explain it for you. Only you. Only the person that feels the presence of God on that particular moment, on that particular day. But in order to feel the presence of God, we have to seek for His presence. We have to beg to God His presence. We have to beg for Him. We need to be thirsty for Him. We need to be hungry for Him. We need to seek His will. But my thought tonight is, what about if we look or start looking closely to feel the presence of God? To feel that God is right next to you. To feel His arms around your back. What about if we would like to feel that God is sitting right next to you? Or that He is on the passenger side as you passenger, as you travel, or as you're going to work? What about if we really feel that presence? We can see or we can tell that, oh yeah, God is with me. But to feel His presence is something else. To feel that kind of a thirst for Him in order to come closer to Him. When we feel thirsty, most of us, if we're not home, we can stop just about in any store and buy a soda or a bottle of water, and we can feel better. If we're home and if we feel thirsty, we can go inside, get a cup of cold water, and feel better. But we don't really feel the thirst of God. Seems like we're so busy on something else that we're not really feeling that need of the presence of God. We don't feel the need of calm our thirst, seeking for God, or coming and kneel before God and talk to God about our needs, our problems, our family, but just to feel the presence of God is something that I think we all should experience. And like I said before, it's something that nobody else can tell for you. You are the only person that can explain what is the presence of God, or what it feels to be in the presence of God, or what it feels when you feel the presence of God right next to you when you're kneeling before God. What about if we were a little bit like David, to go and seek God or the presence of God early in the morning, before the birds start singing, when we can still see the stars? What about if we could feel the need of God very early in the morning and go and seek His face, talk to Him, ask Him for His presence, ask Him to wrap around us His arms, to feel His arms? God knows our needs. God knows our troubles. God knows our problems. God knows our joys. God knows everything about us. And He wants to comfort us. He wants us to feel secure, to feel safe on His arms. Not only to say, I know that God is with me. I know that God's angel is around me. He's taking care of me. It is good to say that and to feel that and to be sure about that. But one of the most beautiful things that we can see or feel is the presence of God. To be sure that we can say, I had a nice experience with God that night or that morning, because I could feel His presence. It could be here in the church, yes. It could be somewhere else. But I would think that when David talks about this, he was alone. He was in the wilderness. He was maybe left out by everybody. And he say, even the ones that knows me, they ask me, where's your God? But David knew that God was right next to him. He was seeking for his presence. He was seeking to feel God's presence on his life, even out in the wilderness, in the middle of nowhere, on the dark night. But he could feel that God was present right next to him. He could feel the presence of God. And I would like to feel the presence of God in my life. And I also ask you to seek for his presence, to be sure that someday, sooner or later, you can feel his presence. And when you have that experience, I know the next time you're going to try to feel the same, and you're going to feel that you need God, and you're going to get closer to God. Because we need to be thirsty in order to get closer to God. Our needs, our troubles, our sicknesses, it draws us closer to God. But when we are seeking just the presence of God, just to feel that he is right next to us, is something else. And I would like to encourage you to seek the presence of God. I don't know if you have one special spot on your house, or I don't know if you have a special spot out in your backyard or something, but let's seek for God's presence. Let's try to feel his presence in our lives. And I'm pretty sure that we all going to be experiencing something different. God bless you and have a nice night.